Baroness Ashton, the European Union's top diplomat, has become the butt of French jokes because of her poor knowledge of the language, resulting in an invitation onto a 2-week intensive language course. But realistically, how easy is it to learn a new language in such a short time? Lizzie Green is Director of Studies at Live Language in Glasgow, and she's here with me now, as is Richard Cady, because of course we had to find a guinea pig, and in the office next to a photo of a guinea pig is a photo of Richard Cady. So,
who's cuter?
You obviously, Richard. Lizzie, what is live language, first of all? What is live language?
It's a small language school in the West End of Glasgow. We do lots and lots of different languages.
And how many languages do you teach at the school?
About 9.
Not you personally.
No.
9. What have we got then?
She's very feisty this morning, Karen. Have you noticed? I'm sorry about this accident that you had, Karen.
It's my technical. It's obviously injected something else into me.
Something's transformed about your character this morning.
Really?
Very corrective.
It's because I've not had any sleep. That's the way she always is. Sorry, Lizzie. Yes, so what is it? You French?
French, Spanish, Italian,
Japanese,
Chinese, Polish, Arabic.
Wow.
Lots.
It's just that now I started learning French when I was 8, because at my primary school we were taught French, and we learnt it then, and it was very basic kind of vocabulary and things like that. And I've got a basic standard of French, but what's quite interesting is when I worked in Geneva for a summer, and my French automatically became much better as soon as I was absorbed in it. And is that kind of what this is, the intensive course? It's kind of absorbing yourself?
Yes. The teacher will be a native speaker, so you'll get absorbed in the culture and the language. And yes, you have to do a lot of homework as well, Richard.
Excellent.
Right. So, Richard, you know French. Is French the language that you speak?
It is, yeah. I studied at school too, like you did, but then I forgot everything when I left school. But then I met my wife, who's French, so I've spent a lot of time in France in the last 15 years, visiting and spending time with my French family. And obviously, my daughter is now 5 and a half. She's bilingual, and it's just amazing. And so there's a lot of French around the house. So that is a language that I'm very familiar with, although I've yet to, I would say, completely master, for being entirely honest. So I was thinking maybe a Latin-based language might be easier for me to learn, but a bit of a leap towards Japanese, to be quite honest.
We've dropped in at the deep end.
Yeah. I'm familiar with a Japanese song, though, not just the one that introduced the item there by the Vapors, but there's that other one, isn't there? How does it go again now? Haiku, haiku, haiku. Was that the one?
Yes.
Is that how it goes? Yeah.
Lizzie, am I correct in saying, this may be incorrect, but I'd always heard that Japanese was one of the most difficult languages to learn. Is that correct?
It's a more difficult language, obviously, than our European language, because there's the characters, the alphabet's different. However, once you master the pronunciation of it, and if you start to understand the way the language works, I mean, you seem to have a flair for language, maybe.
Did that come across in the 5 minutes that we spent in the room next door? Listen, my flair for language.
The point of this is that Baroness Ashton, who's working at the European Union, doesn't speak any French, and so she was offered this 2-week intensive learning course. Do you think, Lizzie, that anybody, if they were put on this 2-week intensive course, could learn any language? Or do you think some people are just not as able to pick up languages as other people are?
Well, I would agree that some people are better at picking up languages than others. But I would say anybody in a 2-week intensive, depending on how intensive it is, they can get by. You can have a conversation with someone, you can talk about yourself, you can order things in restaurants. It all depends on your motivation, why you want to learn the language.
Lots of homework, though, as you say. Yes, what tell us, because Richard's going to come back next Friday and tell us how you've got on.
Yeah.
What are your plans for Richard? What does he need to do for the next week?
Well, he'll have, obviously, lessons with Kiyomi, the Japanese teacher, and then he will practice a lot, doing role plays and things like that, things that you've learned you'll be practicing.
Right, okay.
Practice it at home. But using pictures, music, depends what your interests are.
Yeah.
We'll focus on your interests, and then you can go home with them.
Interesting, isn't it?
Do you think that'll help? Because what you were saying is your wife's obviously French, so you've learned through conversation and kind of actually going to
necessity.
Do you find it easier to learn like that than sitting with a book in front of you and studying?
Yeah, I do, yeah. But I think you need a bit of both, really, though, if I'm entirely honest. The times when I've spoken French better, or I felt more comfortable being in France, I left to my own devices, is when there's been just before we've gone, me and Gail have got together and she's just done a little bit of book learning, as I like to call it, to complement what I already sort of have instinctively and what we've just conversational stuff. So I think the two go together quite nicely. And it's funny, I was just saying to Lizzie actually next door, but Gail has actually been she's fascinated by Japanese culture, and she's been trying to get me to go to Japan for about 15 years. So this could actually, have a knock-on effect.
It could have. It's one of these kind of strange. As people get older, I always regret. I'd love to speak Italian. I think that's a beautiful language. Do you find more people as they get older and they've got a bit more time come to people like yourself and say, no, I when I was at school I didn't like, because most people learned French. That was the language.
French and German.
Yeah. I think Spanish is coming to the fore more now, isn't it? But you get a lot of older kind of people saying, I missed out and I really want to learn a language now.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of them have a motivation. They might go to Spain every year, and they feel a little bit guilty that they can't speak any, so they use it for that reason. So it takes a little bit longer the older you get, so I definitely learn young.
Isn't English language one of the most difficult languages to learn? And Davy McKinnon's got in touch with us, and he said why the English language is so hard to learn. And I know that you teach English, the same language in the school as well. It's like the bandage was wound around the wound, things like that. The farmers used to produce produce, and it's so difficult. We just make it so difficult for other people to learn.
But I think at the same time, when I learned German at school for about 2 minutes, and I can still say,
out the window like everybody else.
Ich heiße Susan, ich bin 13 Jahre alt. So my name's Susan, I'm 13, because that's all I learned. Ich wohne in Glasgow, and that's all I can say in German. Because I found German really difficult.
I learned most of my German from watching, war films like Where Eagles Dare. That's what most of which usually just consisted of English actors putting on a German accent, obviously. Yes. But it was German enough for me. But there was that guy, Michel Thomas? Michel Thomas? Are you familiar with his work, Lizzie, at the Institute? But he was a guy who was a Jewish guy. I think he was recruited by the Allies at the end of the Second World War and had special interrogative powers. And they sort of used him in that role. But afterwards, he used these same skills to sort of convey different languages. And he said that you could learn a language over a weekend. I think Woody Allen apparently used his services and learned French in 48 hours.
Well, we have absolute faith in you, Richard. You're going to go away.
I've set myself up for a fall there.
You're going to go away. Lizzie's going to help. Lizzie and the school are going to help you. You're going to come back next Friday. And we hope that by next Friday you'll be almost entirely fluent in the Japanese
I'll be able to watch a Kurosawa movie without the subtitles.
Completely. So, Lizzie, thanks to you from Live Language in Glasgow. Good luck. And Richard, you're going to be back next Friday with an update on how much you've learned. Arigato gozaimasu, which is the wrong way of saying it. In case you didn't know, because that pronunciation was perfect, that's thank you in Japanese. It's not really. Karen, do we have any texts or emails coming in?
Oh, yes, quite a few here. Bairn's first holiday, fingers crossed, that's from Neil in Selkirk. Packing for holiday in Orkney, that's Alison.
Lovely. Have a nice time, Alison.
Yes, indeed. Southern Fried Festival in Perth, that's been Mark for Perth. And Davy the Postie. Oh, no, that's not 5 words. Oh, poor soul, Karen, a few cuddles from me. That's sweet. Thank you, Davy.
Sorry, I should have offered to comfort you.
No, that's all right. You just stay where you are. Off to Manchester for golf. That's from Kevin Kerluke. And Jill and John in Nairn. First chicks have hatched today. Fantastic,
good.
Fantastic. Off to Ballater with wife. That's from Michael Droy. And the wife's called Joanne, by the way. Thanks for that, Michael. And Davy in Crocketford is getting pickled in the paddock. Euphemism there? No, just drunk, I think, maybe. Colin Mulguy, I'm having a bath. Phew. Glad about that, Colin. And Spark Boy is just going to work late. Let me just see. Chad and Luke's wedding, Iona, and that's from the Maxwells on the way to Oban in the ferry in the car. Hope the weather's okay for you. And McCruty saying, it's 5 words, enjoying Karen and Susan bickering.
We're not bickering.
We're not bickering.
It's funny because they were saying pickled in the paddock. I've got the night off tonight, which is quite rare, and I was thinking about going to the pub. But then, of course, this week we talked about doing something that wasn't going to the pub. Remember we talked about that?
Indeed, a treasure hunt around the house.
Trying to socialise with your friends. So I'm going to suggest to my friends that we do something else.
Other than Monopoly.
Yes.
And I'll give you one more just now, and it's from Joanna, who's travelling to Wales for sailing. Well, hope you enjoy that, Joanna. Yes, indeed. So that's what we want from you today, folks. We want to know what you're up to today, Friday, or over the weekend, in 5 words only, okay? So get in touch with us, 5 words only, what you're up to, 0500 Fred at BBC. Oh, I better say the phone number, 0500 92 95 00, email fred at bbc.co.uk or text 80295.
Is that technical?